All right, gang, and welcome back to Procreate. So, I'm on my gallery here, and I want to talk to you just a little bit about brushes, because brushes are the heart and soul of Procreate, right? We as artists love brushes. We like the additional tools. Brushes, layers, and blend modes, I would say, are 99% of digital art. So let's go ahead and let's create a new canvas. All right, and now we're going to just explore the brushes tab because, again, this is all the intro stuff, folks. I promise you we're going to be laying down some serious strokes here in a little bit. So when you look at brushes, Procreate comes with a lot of different brushes. You've got sketching brushes, inking, calligraphy, painting, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, every artist has their own favorite brushes depending on what kind of art you do. And so many people fall into this falsehood that the magical brush will make them a better artist. That's not the case, but you do have some really cool brushes for some really cool applications. So what I'd like to do here is I'd like to just take a couple minutes, show you some of my favorites, and then show you how to go into a brush and look at the adjustments. Now, there's complete lessons on adjustments here later in the brush section, as well as we're going to be making our own types of brushes. But I want to get you familiar with the overlay of brushes so that you see what's available in Procreate. So one of the things you're going to want right off the bat is sketching brushes. Now, all of these are on the default, so I tend to use the 6B pencil a lot. So the 6B pencil, I'll turn this all the way up. It looks a little bit like that. And now when you go down the brushes, there are different properties. You can adjust the spacing of things. You see how as the spacing begins to get wider, the brush tends to be a little less dense. One of your best friends, folks, is the streamline function. This takes all of the little bumps and jumps out of your stroke. Now, in a sketching pencil, it's not really that important, but when we get to the inking pencils, man, streamline is life, I'll tell you what. So you'll see this is all down here under what is called the stroke panel. You see where it's blue down here in the lower left-hand corner? Now, you can taper the stroke more. You see how that begins to adjust a little bit. You see how it's getting a little less opaque. You could also adjust the opacity and the size. We'll talk all about that in brush adjustment. What I need you to understand right now is that there are adjustments for every type of brush. Now, there's the shape panel. There's the grain panel. We're going to be talking about grain here in just a second. The dynamics of a brush are important. You can even control how your Apple Pencil moves. So you see this pencil option. If you tilt the Apple Pencil, you can set a brush up to respond to the tilt of the Apple Pencil. The General tab, which I think is probably one of the first ones you should touch, we'll again talk about this in brush adjustment. And one of the most exciting things here, folks, for Procreate, you got to get this through your head here. There's two variables to every brush. Every brush has a shape source. So this is a rectangular shape source, and Procreate comes with a library of different shape sources. So let's go ahead and tap on that. You can swap these out. Now you see you've got dry ink, you've got mess, ink mess, flat marker. There's a lot of different ones. We're going to be using a lot of these when we go into actually making brushes. So just know that the panel exists right now. See what's available. And then we'll work on them and work with all of these later. So the shape source is the shape of the actual pencil or the pen or the brush, whatever you want to call it. The second part of that equation, the second partner in the dance, is what is called the grain source. Now the grain source is what shows through. So we can also swap grains, and you'll see that in your Procreate library there's a lot of them already available. All of these what are called kind of seamless textures, like the grunge, the sketch paper, the pastel paper, are all textures or grains that you could apply to the shape source. So every one of these brushes that you see, we can go in here to the airbrushing. We can click on the soft airbrush, and we can look at the shape source and the grain source. You see there's no grain. It is a flat white. And the shape source is that nice faded type of circle. So I'm going to show you how to make one of these later in the brush lesson. So stick with me. Just know it exists and know that with every brush you have both shape and grain. So again, along the bottom, here's all the different adjustments you can make. And it is the unique combination of these that creates these really cool brushes. Now, if you're interested, let's say you're in sketching and you want to add a brush. I'm just going to show you this because you can't resist playing with it. Go ahead and hit the addition. It'll give you an untitled brush. You can call this trial 1. And now you pick a shape. And then we pick a grain. Let's pick a brick texture. And now, when we go back, we have a brand new brush created. And now you can play with all of these to your heart's content, right? You can mess with the spacing. You can make it a little more dense. You can taper it out. You can do a whole bunch of stuff with it. And then if you just can't resist it, you throw it down then on the canvas. All right, that's a little bit about the brushes panel. This is the 10,000 foot view. There are 5 or 6 other lessons on brushes that we're going to get to later in the course, but I want to get you started, moving, and putting some ink down on the page. All right, folks, we'll see you in the next lesson.